1994, Moline, Illinois, a quiet town where nothing unusual happens until one family moved into an old brown house. The parents worked nights. The kids were left alone. Then the music stopped. The knocks began, and a woman's face rose at the edge of the bed, half seen, red lips, watching. It wasn't a dream. Now, let's hear this chilling story from the one who lived it.
Towards the ending of 1994, my mom and dad decided to move us to a little town called Moline, Illinois, which that town lands around a place called Tri-City. We moved there due to my dad not being able to find work here in California. The job that he had pretty much laid him off. Town was very, very mellow, working class. Nobody bothered anybody. Everybody mostly kept to themselves. And we ended up moving into this house that was being rented out to us by this family. And this house was, from the outside, you could say it was a creepy kind of look going up to it. The paint was brown. And during this time, around March, which is when this story takes place, this is during the time when the singer Selena was murdered. And my sister, I remember she was like a huge fan. I recall her being devastated. This is the first week when the news is just going crazy about the death. Our parents were hardly ever home working. My dad would work graveyard shifts. My mom would work from afternoon till we'd say like 11 at night. So practically we were always by ourselves. That day I remember my sister was just nonstop playing one of Selena's albums. Not saying that I don't enjoy her music, it was just all right, I think I'm gonna go do something else. So I recall going into our room that me and my sister shared. I was always been a guy who likes to draw and do little artistic things, and going in my room, grabbing up the pad and pencil and just started drawing. 15 minutes later, my sister says, "Hey, I'm going down to the basement. Please don't shut off the music. I'll be right back up." Okay. Our basement was towards the kitchen. I recall her opening the door and hearing her walk downstairs to the basement. I remember when that happened, the music just stopped. Just out of nowhere, just stopped. And I thought, oh, maybe the CD skipped and she's been playing it so much that the CD's probably scratched or dirty. Okay, whatever. Keep doing what I'm doing. And I can hear her downstairs and looking around for something. And I heard a knock towards the closet that wasn't really that far from where I was sitting, literally a step away. I hear the knock. I was like, okay, you know what? Maybe the house is just settling. It's during the winter. That happens in every house. Went back to what I was doing. Then about, I'd say 15 seconds later, this time it was 2. All right, this isn't, yeah, I could clearly hear this. You could feel almost the force from the knocking. Like you could feel like the knuckle hitting the wood. Got up thinking, okay, what would I do if something was there? So just mastered the courage, opened the door, and as anyone else will tell you, of course, nothing there. Okay, close the door. And as I turned to my left side, now I'm looking at the edge of my bed where we could say the wood is at the end of the bed. And I just recall seeing someone rise up, if they were slightly hunched over, rise up from the side of the edge of my bed and look at me. But I just see half their face, like from where half their nose would start to the other side. Right away, I could identify that it's a woman. I remember her wearing red lipstick. Her hair was straight. She looked like what was like a white shirt, like a long sleeve, like dress shirt. Kind of like when women would do in the 90s, how they would roll up the front end and then tie it. And it looked like that's how her shirt was placed. And saw a little bit would be her jeans, and they were like a light blue. And immediately when I saw that, I was like, call my sister, hey, is that you? And as I got closer, it like slowly went back down. And I remember I just paused and then walked up a little closer and scared out of my mind, what was that I just saw? As I got closer and closer, and nothing there. And I remember the blood just rushing out of my head, like this tingling feeling like, is this for real? Is this like reality right now? Especially coming from a 7-year-old trying to depict if this is reality or not. When that happened, immediately I hear the door open back from the basement. And when that happened, the music immediately starts back up again. And my sister comes up to me and tells me, hey, I thought I told you not to shut off the music. I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't. He's like, what are you talking about? I clearly heard you shut off the music when I was already downstairs. Remember the bass, you could hear the bass from the basement. Like, you shut it off. I'm like, no, I didn't. I decided not to tell my sister that. And I was like, I don't want to scare my sister because, you know, my sister gets easily scared. But the one person I did mention it to was my mom. That same night when she came home and she saw that I was just a little bit like very quiet, very not active as a kid would be. Because I was a very active kid. I used to love playing, doing active things. And she's like, mijo, is everything okay? What's wrong? And I told her, Mom, I saw someone. What did you see? Described every detail. This is what I saw at the edge of my bed. And I remember her face just went from being an understanding mom to just a person who just saw exactly what I saw, like a ghost. Her face was just very stern, very couldn't believe it. And she's like, hey, next time that happens, mijo, that's why we pray every night. That's why we get on our knees and pray to God. That's next time, just pray, and every night we're going to start praying from now on. I would pray a lot, but not wanting to understand why would something like that happen, or why would something like this show itself to me, or not really understanding, I guess we could say, the paranormal at a young age. Of course, I would hear my mom talk about when she lived back in Mexico in her little ranchito, the stories that she would say of what happened to so-and-so neighbor and this neighbor. And yeah, I was already adapted to what ghost stories were, but then having this actually happen to me is just the shock value of it that just takes you by surprise. And my mom is from a small little ranch, and they're in the middle of nowhere. The only thing that surrounds this village is mountains, just tons and tons of mountains. The one thing I remember she recalled telling me when she was a kid growing up, that the one common thing that she would hear things happening was at night when they would be sleeping, they would hear horses, like a bunch of horses, like almost an army of horses running and dragging chains. Later on, she told me that a war had happened in her village. A war had happened between the people there and another group of individuals, and they were fighting for gold that was buried there in their area. To this day, they still suspect that the gold is still buried there. And she would tell me the stories, of course, me being captivated and wanting to know more. I remember she told me the story about when she was a little girl, that sometimes she would go and have to go get water from that was up in her village. One time it was super late and they needed water for the next day. She went up and she began to hear the horses again and them dragging chains. It seems like she said she could feel like it was coming from behind her. She has to walk down a hill and she's carrying these wooden barrels of water with the big, huge wooden stick that people would put overhead and the two barrels on each side. And I remember she said that she heard the horses just running full force and she could hear the chains. She could even feel like the ground just shaking like thunder. And as I got close, she just said that she was just so scared that she just collapsed and like a kid just got into the fetal position and just felt like the force of whatever was running just passed by her. The funny thing is, when it passed, she would look up and expecting all this dirt to be risen up from whatever passes, and there'd be nothing there. She's told me a lot of stories, but a lot of them just probably got lost as I got older. I was 19, and during this time, my mom and dad were definitely having some marital problems. My mom was very suspicious that my dad had another woman in his life. This is when the three apparitions showed themselves to me. During this time, we already settled in Palmdale, California. We owned this little snack shop in a swap meet, which at the time was doing very well, but behind the scenes, people don't know what's going on with the family that's running this successful business. My mom had pretty much suspected that my dad was cheating because he wasn't around the house much. He always was in his job down in the valley and wasn't around much. So you could feel the vibe wasn't a good one here at home. Very depressing, very lonely, a very sad ambience. After a hard day's work, I remember I got home and immediately just went to bed. People always say that 3 o'clock is the hour of the witch or the hour of the devil. I remember I looked at the clock and it was 3:07 and I was in the fetal position. I had a one-person bed. I remember blinking my eyes because I knew I had to go to the restroom and looking at the door. And I was like, all right, I'm going to wake up and then go to the restroom. So I'm blinking several times and then you give a stretch. And I remember still being in the fetal position, but looking up towards my left side, towards the ceiling. And that's when slowly but surely something just starts to appear. It's slowly appearing to me and I'm blinking my eyes over and over again. And am I seeing this right? Am I looking at something? What's going on? And as it slowly starts to make itself more in focus, I realize that it's a young boy. It's a young boy who I can tell is in his teens. He looked like about 15, 16. I recall him wearing this light gray shirt that I depict as a baseball shirt. It has the different colored rings on the collar and on the collars of the ends of the shirt. And he's on top of me. He's laying on top of me with his hands folded, like when someone's watching TV, they lay their head on their hands. And he's laying on top of me, and he has reddish hair, curly reddish hair, and his hair is pretty long. And I recall that he had a beanie, the same color as his shirt, a light gray beanie. He's not looking directly at me, he's looking at the wall behind me. And I keep blinking and opening my eyes. Am I seeing this correctly? Is this for real? And there was a brief moment where everything just got quiet. I couldn't hear myself breathe anymore. And that's when he looks down at me and then looks right back up to the wall and gives like a gentle chuckle. And that's when he started to fade out. And at that point, I was pinching myself. Am I really awake right now? Is this for real? I could slowly see him fade away. And at that moment, once again, it was just the shock of it happening. And I recall just going back to when I was a kid, when I would have these night terrors that would send me running to my parents' room and pretty much crying that I wanted to sleep with them. But at this time I'm 19, but I felt that feeling once again of being a kid. Like, I want to run to my parents' room right now. And I'm still awake. I'm pinching myself. This has to be a dream. No, it's not. I would fall asleep and then wake back up. The vibe that I felt from this apparition wasn't a negative one. I could feel this person was just passing through, and we could say wanted to make himself noticed. It was like as if I knew he wasn't there to hurt me or harm me.
Your story could be next. Let us know in the comments, and we'll get in touch with you.